As they know, tomorrow our exhibitors will start, and please make sure to go through the room and thank all of the different companies that have been so supportive of everything that we do here. I'd like to acknowledge our national champions for this year on the NCAA men's Division I side. University of Minnesota Duluth Bulldogs, congratulations, repeat national champions. And also like to congratulate our Division III champions, University of Wisconsin Stevens Point, that reached an incredible goal, not only national championship this year, but an undefeated season. And as all of you in this room know, that is very, very tough. Congratulations to Stevens Point. Our partners in much of what we do is the AHCA, and we want to acknowledge their national champions, the Division I champion from Minot State, who defeated Iowa State 3-1 in the final. Congratulations. The AHCA Division II champion was kind of our hometown team here. Everybody in Collier County knows them as FGCU. That's Florida Gulf Coast University. Congratulations to them, coached by former RPI All-American Bob Brinkworth. And at the Division III level, we'd like to congratulate Sioux College, who defeated Grand Valley State 12-3 in the national championship. Congratulations to all the AHCA national champions. We're so proud of those teams and the coaches and everything that they have done, and tonight's a great way to acknowledge them as well as our major award winners. Congratulations to all of you. As I did, some of you may know that at the national championship, we've started to do one or two of our big awards, and one of the awards that we did this year in Buffalo was the Lamorello Award. And we're lucky enough tonight to also have our Lamorello Award winner back here tonight to have dinner with us, and that's John McLennan from Clarkson University. When John went over and greeted Red and congratulated Red on his award that he'll be getting tonight, and right away, the first thing John said was, remember when Clarkson came out to Michigan and we beat you guys? And Red right away said, yeah, I think I hit the pipe about 3 or 4 times that game. So the old victories and defeats stay with us for a long, long time. Congratulations, certainly, to John with the Lamorello Award. I also want to mention something that I think a lot of you know, and tomorrow we'll have the Hockey Coaches Care cocktail party outside here where we do a lot of fundraising for Hockey Coaches Care. We've been able to raise and donate close to $500,000 at this point to various people over the years through Hockey Coaches Care. So please come to the cocktail party, help support Hockey Coaches Care. And if you can't come to the cocktail party, please go to our website, and any donation that you can make to help Hockey Coaches Care is greatly appreciated. So don't be shy. Step up and help us with Hockey Coaches Care. I'd now like to introduce our executive director. We're so fortunate to have somebody like Joe to lead us and direct us. We tease a lot about some of the stuff he does. After all, you have to keep teasing guys who graduated from Harvard, not to mention goaltenders. But we're so fortunate to have somebody who cares so much about this organization and so much about college hockey. It's my pleasure to introduce our executive director, Joe Bertagna.
Good evening. Bruce and I are continuing our extended dog and pony show we've had going for a while. This is the 72nd year of the American Hockey Coaches Association. It's the 28th year we've been at the Naples Beach Hotel, and I know some of you have heard the rumors that we're not going to be here forever. The property's been sold. We have 2 more years here. And so if you have any tips for us starting in 2022, let us know. This place has served us very well, so we'll get to 30 years, which is good. There's a photograph in my office of the 1957 AHCA convention, the 10th convention, which was held at the Hotel Kenmore, I think, in Boston, Mass. Contrary to popular belief, Bruce and I were not at that event. But if you look through the past winners of the awards we're giving out tonight, many of them were. In fact, 3 of them after whom awards are named. Snooks Kelly, Jim Fullerton, and Eddie Jeremiah are in that picture. It's a great photograph of a who's who of college hockey and a much smaller gathering than what we have here. I do want to acknowledge another individual who won't get up here tonight, but we're saving him for tomorrow. It's our esteemed president, Enrico Blasi, who will lead us all off at the opening business meeting tomorrow morning. So we're keeping him under wraps until tomorrow. So he'll have a presence here at the convention. One of the things I get to do is acknowledge, as Bruce acknowledged, the teams that did well this year. We're going to acknowledge some of the individuals who have previously been honored through a number of the associations, not only ours, but others. The Hockey Commissioners Association gives out 2 awards. The Derek Hines Unsung Hero Award honors the memory of Derek Hines, a former Army hockey player who gave his life for his country while serving in Afghanistan. This year's Hines Award recipient, a senior forward who played for Coach Steve Rollick at Ohio State, a native of Northville, Michigan. Congratulations to Brandon Kearney. Commissioners also recognize a National Rookie of the Year that's chosen by the assistant coaches at the Division I level. This is named in honor of the former Olympic and Yale University coach Tim Taylor. This year's National Rookie of the Year award played for Albie O'Connell at Boston University, signed with the Philadelphia Flyers at the end of the season, a native of Cicero, New York, Joel Farabee. One of the highlights of the Friday night at the Frozen Four, when the awards are given out, is the presentation of the Hockey Humanitarian Award, as they call it, given to hockey's finest citizen. For the 24th year, this award recognized a hockey player for their off-ice efforts within their local community and beyond. This year, it was a senior defenseman for Tony Granato at Wisconsin, a native of Middleton, Wisconsin. The recipient created a foundation to address the ongoing needs of an orphanage in Haiti. And his efforts, when you read about it, are truly inspirational. The 2019 humanitarian is Jake Buns of the University of Wisconsin. There are 2 Players of the Year in men's ice hockey at the NCAA level, one awarded by the AHCA and one by the Hobey Baker Memorial Award Foundation. In Division III, the award we sponsor, the Player of the Year, is named after the former Bowdoin College coach and athletic director Sid Watson. This year's Watson Award winner, a senior goaltender for Chris Schultz at Geneseo, a Calgary native, goaltender Devin McDonald. And finally, a truly electrifying player who had a great season and a historic season for his program, the Hobey Baker Award winner, a sophomore defenseman, also from Calgary and from the University of Massachusetts, played for Greg Carville, Cale Makar. Now, we're going to add a feature to the evening. We've just recognized people who active and made great contributions to the season. We also lost some people from our community, and we're going to put together a little in memoriam just to recognize a handful of people, some of whom had been fixtures down here at Naples that won't be with us this year. So I'll ask our friends to run this. Oh. See if we can get that going. There we go. Last week at the Boston Bruins game, they did a tribute to John Havlicek, the basketball player that passed away, and instead of a moment of silence, they asked people to applaud and celebrate his life, and I would ask you to do the same thing for these individuals. So we're going to start the awards, and I have the pleasure of presenting a couple of our major awards. I also want to mention, in addition to Jocko McLennan receiving his Lamarillo Award in Buffalo, we also presented Bob Rosen of Williamsville North High School in New York this year's John Mariucci Award, and that's adding different awards to the Friday luncheon is just giving us another event at the Frozen Four. Two things we like to say to the award winners who come up here to receive their awards. One is, do we want to congratulate them for the award they're receiving, and we want to remind them that nobody ever said, I wish that award winner had stayed up there a little bit longer. So we're going to start with the John Snooks Kelly Founders Award. Named after the former Boston College coach, this award honors those people in the coaching profession who have contributed to the overall growth and development of the sport of ice hockey in the United States. This year's recipient is Mike McMillan. Mike has coached at the youth, high school, and college level since the early 1980s. In addition, he has held a number of positions, all intended to grow the game for one constituency or another. The USA Hockey National Coach-in-Chief, member of the USA Hockey Youth Council and Player Development Committee, Director of Minnesota Hockey's CCM High Performance Programs for the state of Minnesota, Head Coach for the USA Hockey National Sled Development Program, founding member of the Hendrickson Family Foundation supporting disabled hockey in Minnesota, position of Executive Director of the Minnesota High School Hockey Coaches Association, representing 300 different member coaches and 160 high school programs. His 30-year high school coaching career began in Menominee, I knew I had trouble with that, Menominee, Wisconsin, before coaching at New Ulm, Minnesota. He retired as the head coach of Buffalo High School in 2011. As the high school coach, he chaired the committee to build a new state-of-the-art facility and develop training programs to benefit local players and local hockey associations. In 2014, he accepted a position as an assistant coach at Hamline University with responsibilities for goaltenders and defensemen. And in his first year with the staff, guided the team to the MIAC championship. He's no stranger to awards. You look at his biography, his resume, he's been recognized for his contributions at virtually every level and every assignment he's taken. It's my pleasure to present the 2019 Snooks Kelly Award to Mike McMillan. Smile for Jennifer. There you go.
I've done these, so I understand that getting out of here quick is important, but it's also important to say a few words, especially to my special guests on the left and friends in the audience. I'm extremely honored and humbled to win this award. I want to thank Joe, Bruce, Enrico, and the board of directors and the selection committee. I truly appreciate it. I also wanted to thank all the other award winners this evening and their families and honor them as well. American Hockey Coaches Association is special to me. It's special to all of you, I know. And the job that they do to support all coaches, not only in the college ranks, but also in amateur ranks in high school hockey, doesn't always get told. But I know as an executive director of the Coaches Association in Minnesota, we reached out years ago, and Joe reached back, and they'll do anything they can to help support everyone. I think that's really important. And that fits into the kind of the belief, and hopefully, that I instill with the programs that I'm involved in the state of Minnesota. As I looked at the list, it was extremely humbling. Mike Surdich, Jeff Sauer, Bob O'Connor, Dave Peterson, Lou Vero, Rube Bjorkman, and Bruce Johnson have all been mentors of mine. And I think that's so important for all of us. And to be honored with them was really moving. And when Joe called, I just didn't know what to say, and other than thank you. But seeing those names on the list was really special to me because they gave so much back to me as I was going through the ranks as a coach starting in the early 80s. I'm also very blessed to be part of two, I think, unbelievable organizations. USA Hockey, which is clearly a leader in the world. I know in the coaching education program. Minnesota Hockey, I got to be careful. I think it's special, but I know others in the room may not. But we're unique at best, but we're okay. Exactly. But I've been honored to be with two great organizations, and they kind of, for me, it's one path, it's one group, and we work really well simultaneously. But to be involved in uplifting coaches, making them better, making our player development programs better has truly been an honor. And I've always believed that coaching really is player development. That's where it starts, not in hockey camps. It starts at the grassroots level. And hopefully the things that we're doing in the coaching education program have helped that nationally, and I think the results speak for themselves. Most importantly, though, for me, it's the relationships that I've been able to foster and develop. Walking in tonight, got to meet so many college coaches that I see during the high performance programs or the Speak at coaching education programs. It just makes it fun, and it's so special to be part of that group. And you don't do that without special people. And there's a number of them that I just want to take a second to recognize. First of all, my parents are here, my mom and dad, and I don't always thank them enough. Kind of pick on them a little bit, being the oldest, but they've been great to me. And I started they asked a couple questions. They didn't even know what I was asking, but I asked a couple questions about, kind of their background. And I know my dad helped build a rink in Piedmont Heights in Duluth, Minnesota. I didn't know that my mom was lobbying with the mayor to make sure that when they built the rink that they got the funding and the property that they needed. I found that out. But they've always volunteered and given back. Coached since I was little. Didn't coach me necessarily, but gave back to others, and that was really special, and special that they're able to be here with me tonight. My wife Susie was at the table as well. Started special hockey in Minnesota, giving back to disabled athletes with developmental disabilities. So I think some of my connections run with those that give back, and she's been extremely special to me, and watching her and her passion keeps me energized. My daughter Jackie, who is the head coach at St. Scholastica, just won the conference coach of the year and continues to give back and is a big part of the sport, and has always been so supportive of me, and so proud of her accomplishments. My stepdaughter Abby is here, played goalie at Syracuse. Little connection. My daughter and my stepdaughter and me are all goalies. It's kind of cool, I think. A little whacked, but cool. John Ammerman is at the table as well. John's the new president of the Minnesota Hockey Coaches Association, so you college coaches need to get to know him. He's also the head coach at Moorhead, Minnesota, a high school program, which is one of the top programs I think in the country and clearly in the state. Johnny actually played for me in a 16 team when we used to have Team Minnesota, and now to see him rise to being an unbelievable head coach, but also the president of our Coaches Association, for me is real prideful. That's pretty cool. Also, one person I want to recognize, he's not here because he's sitting with his buddies, but Mike Snee from College Hockey Inc. I think you all know the contributions he's given to this organization and to college hockey. But for me, running the high performance programs and the stuff that I did in Minnesota, he was our second executive director, and he really helped propel and push and move things to the next level from a marketing and promotion. And he has such a passion, not only for USA Hockey, but for Minnesota hockey. So I needed to mention him. Mike Schwartz, who flew down, is here as well, former Augsburg coach, good friend. And also to my left, a really special person. We kind of have a love-hate relationship. I know others do with him as well. But Mark Tabram, who is the coaching director with USA Hockey, and we've been partners for 20 years in the coaching program, and we have not been able to accomplish what we have if we haven't done it together. An unbelievable team of 215 instructors. Also the USA Hockey crew, the ADM regional managers that are here, and Pat Keller, who flew in as well, the new executive director, and I know his passion for college hockey and coaching, and he rose through the ranks as a coach himself, and I know his family's intricately involved in coaching. So I wanted to thank them. And the last person sitting right there and talk about mentorship, as a parent, sometimes you get nervous when your kids have these mentors, and you go, well, they're extremely important in your children's lives. And one of the best mentors I know my daughter has is Mark Wick, who's sitting at the table with us, assistant coach at Augsburg, former St. Scholastica coach. He's speaking this weekend. And if anybody has a chance to please listen to him speak, he spoke at our high school coaches events and other events around the country on mental health and coaching and players. And you need to listen to it. It's extremely important. But I want to personally thank him for everything he's done for my family and mentoring my daughter up. So she's a better coach today because of you, so thanks for being there. That's all I got. Hopefully that wasn't too much. Joe told me 7 minutes. I think I made it. And Roger Grillo told me 3. I know I didn't make that, but hopefully I got close. Have a fun night, and thank you very much.
Just a note for the award winners, Jennifer, our photographer, who's been here a number of years and documents the convention, not just the dinner, but the week we're here. There'll be photograph opportunities at the end of the night for groups and people at your table to go along with the pictures that are taken from the podium. So please be prepared to stick around and take advantage of that opportunity. Every year I do have the opportunity to be up here and we ask people to look at the award winners. You know, when somebody gets up to get an award and they, as Mike did, they reference what it means to be included with the previous recipients of that given award. It really is a cross-section of our sport. I mean, we're all competitive. It's getting tough, very tough culture now. This is one of those nights that we hope people can come in here and they're not competing, they're not recruiting, they're realizing that we're part of something together, and you can appreciate it by looking at what's happened, what's come before us at these awards. The one that I'm about to give out now is a great one for that idea of a cross-section. The Jim Fullerton Award is, there may be one or two coaches that have won it, but it's really for the supporting cast of the sport. And if you look at the people that have won this, you see sales reps, you see referees, you see members of the media, print media, broadcast media, trainers, guys that drove the team bus somewhere, somebody that was a 30-year play-by-play broadcaster. It's all those people that kind of fill in the culture that we're so proud to be part of. Jim Fullerton Award is named in honor of the former Brown University hockey coach and an individual sometimes referred to as the AHCA, I see a typo on my list, AHCA spiritual leader. This award recognizes an individual who loves the purity of the sport. Whether a coach, administrator, trainer, official, journalist, or just simply a fan of the game, the recipient exemplifies Jim Fullerton, who gave as much as he received and never stopped caring about the direction in which our game was heading. This year's recipient is Bob Norton. Bob enjoyed 3 distinct careers in college athletics: football player at Rutgers, football and hockey coach at the University of New Hampshire, and as a college hockey broadcaster. As an assistant coach under the legendary Charlie Holt at UNH, he played an integral role in recruiting players that would be All-Americans and NHL athletes. These players included Jamie Hislop, Gordie Clark, Bruce Crowder, Ralph Cox, and Rod Langway. As a broadcaster, Norton first provided color commentary for New Hampshire Public TV and saw the origination of the Hockey East Association in 1984. The following year, he transitioned to Nesson, paired up with Sean McDonough to handle the call for Hockey East games live. He would call 16 Hockey East tournaments, 15 Beanpot Championships, appeared on ESPN for 9 Frozen 4 broadcasts, and also worked the selection show and the regionals on multiple occasions. He's part of the broadcast team that brought Nesson's popular mini one-on-one feature between periods of the Boston Bruins games for 30 years, working alongside USA Hockey's Ron DiGregorio and current broadcaster Tom Caron. At the high school level, he worked numerous state championships as well. A football player at Rutgers, class of '65, started his coaching career at Bergen Catholic High School in New Jersey and Holy Cross before moving to UNH. Well known for his coaching and broadcasting, he also served as an administrator at the secondary school level for 33 years, retiring after a 16-year tenure as the principal of Woburn, Massachusetts High School in 2009. He received 2 New England Emmy Awards for his broadcasting, the Hockey East Media Award, and recognized by the Massachusetts High School Hockey Coaches Hall of Fame and the New Hampshire Hall of Fame. You know, I get to do this every year. I get to kind of pick a couple of awards, or it just falls to me. And one of the real treats is I often get to present things to people I know, people that are friends and have been good friends. And this is one of those occasions. So it's given me great personal pleasure to give this year's Fullerton Award to Bob Norton. I'm going to take a picture over here.
Thank you.
Put this on the wall because
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much, Joe. If you'd seen me last night, you might have had questions whether I'd make it or not, with good reason, because I had a little knee problem, and I treat it like an athlete. You know, I took a little dope this afternoon about 3 o'clock, put ice on my knee for about an hour and a half, and I was ready to go. Wrapped it up, and off we go. We play the game. But it's a pleasure for me to be here. Joe's going to panic when I take out these 8 pages. He's going to think that. But at my age, what you have to do is write big letters with big spaces in between. This has been a real love for me to do these college hockey games over the year. I had a chance to be a high school principal for 30 years. I wouldn't have given it up for anything. It was a great experience for me, and I loved the job till the last day I worked at it. I grew up in Watertown, Massachusetts as a football, baseball player. 1 year of freshman hockey, and my only other hockey connections were playing Little League and CYO baseball with Jerry York. He was the pitcher, I was the catcher, and I was just figuring out the other day, he's been my friend for 60 years. It's unbelievable, and our fathers before that. I also played high school football and baseball with Richie Green, the great BU All-American, who some of you might remember. When I got to Rutgers, I got bored in the wintertime. I was playing football and baseball, and I was just hanging around drinking beer in the wintertime, and I figured I better do something else. So I joined the Rutgers club hockey team out of the South Mountain Arena. And the greatest thing about that, because it wasn't like football or baseball, it was after the games, we went to the local pub and we bought cases of beer and put them on the bus for the ride home. That was a new experience for me. But that was my hockey background. That's all I did. Now, this is what you have to think is unbelievable as you sit here today. In 1969, I was serving as the offensive line coach at Holy Cross. A hepatitis epidemic had ended our season after 2 games, and the head coach had gone off the wagon. We were in a dark place. That's not a lie. Double martini lunches are not conducive to developing football plans. So we went 0-2, and I saw that we were going to go 0-11 the next year, and fate stepped in. My former teammate at Rutgers, Lou Tepper, who would later become head coach at Illinois, called me on the phone, and he said, we're looking for an assistant football, assistant hockey coach at the University of New Hampshire. Do you know anybody who might be interested? I said, yeah, me. And believe it or not, with my limited experience, which I mentioned to Lou, he said, you don't have to worry about it. Now, this is what it was in 1969 at UNH. The head coach just has to think you're okay. It's primarily a football job, and hockey is he just has to like you. So I said, okay, I can fit into that. And as long as he could live with me, it was going to work out. So in 1969, I became Charlie Holt's assistant, and a lifelong friendship with Charlie began. We were a Division I program on a really short budget, as you can tell by how they hired the assistant coach. What we had was a brilliant hockey head coach and an assistant who learned and recruit like the devil. Coach Holt was a wonderful man, and he took me under his wing. He took me to the first hockey national championship, and it wasn't in Florida. It was in Boston at the Parker House. The national convention was at the Parker House in Boston, and that's when I met some of the legends of the game. Gathered around the tables talking hockey were Coach Fullerton, Coach Kelly, Lefty Smith, Coach Renfrew, Emma Bassoni, and many others. I got to sit and listen while they told stories. My education began sitting around a table listening to Emma Bassoni talk about hockey. And those of you who look back, he could talk and tell stories like no one else. We went on to have some good fortune at UNH in Charlie and my years together. We went from not making the 18 playoff in the old ECAC to finishing first in 1975. I'm thankful we had some guys, terrific players, like Rod Langway, who, believe it or not, at that time was also a great football player, playing defensive end and coming out to play defense on the hockey team. And he talked to coach and let him quarterback the team in the spring game, and he was the most valuable player in the spring game as a quarterback, a different kind of athlete. But Rod was there, and Bobby Gould, and Jamie Hislop, and Cliff Cox, and Ralph Cox, and Timmy Burke, and Gordy Clark, Cap Rader, Bobby Miller, Terry Flanagan, Mike McShane, a lot of other great ones. Prior to 1970, UNH had one All-American. Over the next 7 years, we had 7. We also had smart hockey players who could understand Coach Holt. Nobody would really understand that line unless they played for Coach Holt. Coach Holt was a very cerebral guy, and if you weren't cerebral, you were lost. But I always felt that Charlie's greatest contribution to college hockey was his coaching tree. Look at this. Bill Beanie at Middlebury, Michael McShane at Norwich and Providence, Dick Camilli at the University of New Hampshire, Joey Marsh at St. Lawrence, Bruce Crowder at Lowell and Northeastern, and you can add in Alan Clark at Culver. His former players won close to 3,000 college hockey games. It's an unbelievable achievement, and he is the baseline. The next big event in my hockey life occurred in 1971 when Charlie and Sid Watson moved their hockey school from Lake Placid to Bowdoin, where Sid was the head hockey coach. Sid became one of my closest friends, and hockey school became a fixture of our family over the next 20 years. Another learning opportunity among the great coaches who came to camp and gathered in the living room at 30 College Avenue, drinking Rolling Rock beer and talking hockey. Len Zaglarski, Jerry York, Bill McKinnon, Lou Raycroft, Cap Rader, Bruce Delventhal, and the young guys, Mike Cavanaugh, Greg Carville, Wayne Wilson, Roger Grillo, Eddie Cini. The clinic also began a lifelong friendship for me with Reno Reed and Mike Linkovich, Terry Mahar, Kenny Martin, Roger Demet, and Chris Gurry. What a list of great hockey people gathered together over the summertime. I left coaching in 1976. At that time, public television in New Hampshire was putting on UNH hockey games, and Sam Price, the director at WENH, asked me if I'd like to do the games. I began another career and started out working with Jim Janot, one of the legends of New Hampshire hockey, who started me off with New Hampshire Broadcasting, who started me off with good fundamentals. Over this second career of mine, I worked with some of the best play-by-play men in the business. In 1986, Lou Lamoriello and Bob Whitelaw at Nesson asked me to do the Hockey East games, and I became a long broadcast partner relationship with Sean McDonough, who's the best no matter what sport he does. Later, Kerwin Hudson put me to work for the NCAA Regionals. Through all of this, I broadcast with the best. These people were Fred Cusick, who was my lifelong idol, listening to him do games for the Boston Bruins. Over the course of my career, doing these games with these broadcasters was a real thrill. And when you look at the number of people that I work with and how they achieved excellence over their careers, it was just a pleasure for me to work with them. Bob Kurtz was particular, and Tom Caron were particularly outstanding in that regard. Hold on, let me find my place. I just lost my. I knew I should have numbered these damn things. Whoops, I'm getting there. This doesn't count against my time. I used to take a lot of grief from the suits at ESPN for always naming the places where kids played, that somebody played for such and such and played someplace. They wanted me to talk about the draft status, and I believe the people wanted to hear where a player played, that he played for Eddie Burns at Arlington High School, or was a wing beaver at Avon All Farms. And when I did a North Dakota National Championship game, my goal was to get every North Dakota kid's hometown mentioned, get every North Dakota kid's coach mentioned, and talk about the North Dakota high school hockey programs that helped this North Dakota team be at the national championship. I think that was what was important to the kids, the schools, the coaches, and the towns in North Dakota and the towns all over. This all worked out for me. I had time to coach my own kids, watch them play at UNH Assumption and Yukon. I worked the first game that Pat played for UNH against BU, and was working the game he scored against Boston College in the last game at Snively in the Hockey East playoffs. I got to see Paul Correa and Brian Leach and Bobby Miller play, three of the best I ever saw. Bobby averaged almost 2 points a game in his 2 seasons at UNH. I got to watch Rizzioni, Montgomery, and Drury. Got to watch them play and wish that I could have coached them. A lot of good things have happened to me through sports. Probably the greatest personal one was when I called my dad in 1964 and told him my football teammates at Rutgers had elected me captain. This honor, in memory of Coach Fulton, is at the top of the list. Thank you very much.
The 19 recipient is Red Berenson of the University of Michigan. You know, when you give an award to somebody like Red, I think I can say unequivocally, with no argument certainly in this room, we would be hard-pressed to find somebody that's been involved with college hockey who's had a more illustrious college career, hockey career in both college and the NHL. I mean, we have a true Hall of Famer here tonight, and somebody that we're very, very proud to recognize. Red formed a unique career at both the professional and collegiate levels. The only person to be selected Coach of the Year in both the NHL and the NCAA. Berenson was also a standout player at both levels. Internationally respected, Berenson was inducted into the U.S. Hockey Hall of Fame in December of 2018, 2 years after completing his 33rd and final season as head coach at the University of Michigan. Berenson is one of 4 college hockey coaches to amass more than 800 career wins. He went 848, 426, and 92, which is a .654 winning percentage. Only Jerry York, who is here in the room with us tonight, again, another one of our true greats, Jerry York. The late Ron Mason with 924 wins, and Jack Parker with 897 wins. Berenson also guided the Wolverines to a record 22 consecutive appearances in the NCAA tournament from 1991 through 2002, and winning national championships in 1996 and 98. Berenson was a 3-year letter winner at Michigan and named All-American and team MVP in his junior and senior seasons. He went straight from college to the NHL after signing with the Montreal Canadiens. He played for the Canadiens, the New York Rangers, St. Louis Blues, and Detroit Red Wings during his NHL career that spanned 1962 to 1978. He had 261 goals, 397 assists for 658 points in 987 games. Berenson spent 3 seasons as coach of the Blues, winning the Jack Adams Award as the NHL Coach of the Year in 1980-81. He reunited with his former coach, Scotty Bowman, as an assistant with the Buffalo Sabres in 1982 before returning to Ann Arbor to work at the University of Michigan. If you've ever been around Red, you understand that accomplishments in life don't have much to do with sports, said his former goaltender, Marty Turco, who won 127 games at Michigan from 1994 to 98, which is still an NCAA record, and 275 in the NHL from 2000 to 2012. As Marty said, it's about attitude and continuing to grow as a person for Red. I'll tell you a little quick story here that those of us who have been around a little while, we were able to talk Red into talking to the body about the first Canada Cup, of which he was a young member of that team. The room, you could have heard a pin drop as he told what it was like to be on that team and some of the inside stories about playing on that team with Hall of Famer after Hall of Famer after Hall of Famer as a young player being on that club. It was a great story, and certainly something will always remember as part of my AHCA experience. It is my great pleasure to introduce our 2019 McGinnis Award recipient, Red Berenson.
Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Joe. Rico, for remembering me. We retired in '77. I never got started here till I was 44, and I was wondering if I was doing the right thing, leaving the Buffalo Sabres to come back to Michigan, who had finished 9th in the last 2 years. And Don Cannon was the athletic director, and Al Renfrew was the ticket manager at that time, but he had been my coach. And they assured me it was a good move, but I had my concerns. But my wife is here tonight, Joy. She's been through all this, and we'll celebrate our 60th anniversary this fall and up in Mackinac Island. Two of my favorite players are here tonight, both All-Americans, Brian Wiseman and Billy McCult, great players in their time, and now assistant coach with Mel Pearson. Mel called me this morning and reminded me it was 45 degrees in Ann Arbor and raining. So we'll go back to that. But Mel is thinking about it, and he couldn't make it down for this year's meetings. When I came down in '84 and they had started this award, I looked at the award winners, and Emil Bissomni was the first award winner from Michigan State. And I didn't know much about Michigan State then, but I learned fast. And of course, Ron Mason and I became interesting rivals, respectful rivals, if you would. And I was sad to see Ron pass away a couple of years ago, the same weekend as Gordie Howe left us. And you remember those people. You've had a history with them, and you may not have invited them over for dinner, but you had a lot of respect. I did have Howe over for dinner, but and a little bit about, and the same thing with Ted Lindsay. You know, Lindsay passed away this winter, and I had to go in and speak on his behalf because I was one of the few players around that could still remember what it was like, what Ted Lindsay was like, and to say it politically correct, because Lindsay wasn't very politically correct. But and so I invited him down to talk to our team in the locker room, and this is about 10 years ago, when he still knew, he still had his senses, and I introduced him, and he had shrunk literally, and I introduced him as one of the greatest all-time hockey players ever, and the players are looking around, some of them saying, "Who's Ted Lindsay?" And I said, this guy was the dirtiest, meanest, most competitive, most this, most that, and the best teammate ever, and on. And then one of the players said, didn't they name an award after Ted Lindsay? And another player said, yeah, the best player in the NHL is named after Ted Lindsay. He must have been pretty good. And Lindsay was humble, but anyway, at the end of his little talk with our team, he says, now remember one thing, always be on time. And so months later, I asked our team in one of our little meetings, and you remember that player we had up talking to you about, he'd been a great player? Oh yeah, Ted Lindsay. What do you remember from that speech? Always be on time. That's all they remembered. Not any of the other stuff that he talked about. But he was a great, I would say, founder, supporter of the players and the Players Association. And that's why he got traded from Detroit to Toronto, or Detroit to Chicago in his heyday. And he and Glenn Hall and so on. And so he still remember that. If you bring it up, Ted Lindsay would go off on a tangent about Jack Adams and what a so-and-so he was for trading him to Chicago. So anyway, that's what I've been doing in my so-called retirement, and revisiting some of our history. And one thing I had to tell you when I was a kid, I'm not going to tell you much about what I did, but when I was a kid, when I look back, and I like this, it was Christmas Day, and I was 9 years old, and we lived in Regina, Saskatchewan. It was miserable there, as you can imagine. But I got a new pair of fiber shin pads for Christmas, and I couldn't wait to call my friend Harold Brock. And at 5:30 in the morning, and I called Harold, and his mother said, "What is this?" I said, "It's me, Gord." That's my real name, Gord. And it's me, Gord. And tell Harold to come down to the corner and shoot pucks at me, because I got some new fiber shin pads for Christmas. And that's what we're all looking for, right? I mean, that's who we are, and that's who we were, and that's never going to leave us. And so I've really been proud that I chose college hockey, not just as a coach, but as a player. And in the time when they told you if you were a good prospect, you'll never be a pro if you go to college. And the only player that had made it to the NHL at that point was Red Hay. And he had been the Rookie of the Year in I believe it was 61. And he graduated from Colorado College, and he was a great player, and he was from our hometown. And I really looked up to Hay. In fact, you should have him down here sometime, Joe. While he is a terrific speaker, and he's like John McClanahan over here. He's an accomplished person. He was a graduate geologist. His dad was the CEO of Imperial Oil in Canada and so on. Red Hay he was on Hockey Canada for all those years and so on and so forth. If he can come down, it would be memorable. But give him time. He would need some time. So, but he was great. So anyway, those are just a few things. Other than that, when I look at the list of the guys that came before me, like Emil Bisomi, and then it goes on and on, Jack Riley and Herb Brooks and all the way up to more recent coaches, and I mentioned Ron Mason, and Jerry York is a great friend of mine. And in fact, 84, my first year at Michigan, Bowling Green won the national championship. Ronald Reagan was still president. Edmonton Oilers won the Stanley Cup. And Jerry York was the coach of Bowling Green. That was my introduction to college hockey. And after the first year, and I thought, holy Christ, I thought this team just needed a coach. We needed more than a coach. And so I had to learn how to coach on the run at Michigan. That was my first coaching job. A lot of you guys have had the benefit of being assistant coaches, and you're around the coach and so on and so forth. But until you are named the head coach, you don't realize what it's like. And for those of you that are, and good for you, and we've seen a lot of great coaches come through college hockey. And I'm just proud to be one of them. I'm proud that I stuck up for college hockey. I'm proud that I went to college and graduated and never went pro early because Montreal said you'll never be a player if you stay in school, and so on. And now look at the NHL. At that time, in 1962, there was one college graduate in the NHL. There was one American in the NHL. That was Tommy Williams. The college graduate was Red Hay. And there was one American. I think it was one European. Ulf Sterner was a nondescript player with the Rangers from Sweden. It was kind of a novelty, a European player. And so now look at college hockey in the NHL, and look at how it's grown. Look at the growth of American players, and look at obviously the European players. So the game is growing. It's getting better. We might be overcoaching a little bit with all the technology and everything else, but the players need it. They love it, and good for you guys to do what you're doing. I want to say one thing on the behalf of the women. I know they're celebrating tomorrow, but I have two granddaughters that are hockey players, and I enjoy watching them play and then translating that into the Women's Olympics and the World Championships. How good is that? That hockey has come miles. And so good for you girls. Keep doing what you're doing. Good for you guys that are helping the girls and so on. And good for my granddaughters to listen to me. So good. Thank you very much for having me.
I'd be worried if we don't get Red Hay down here in a hurry. Have to do that quickly. Again, I have the great pleasure, as some of you know, former athletic director at Plattsburgh State, which has a proud hockey tradition at the Division III level. And it's my pleasure to now bring up the director of the ACHA, who's a Plattsburgh grad, Craig Barnett. For many years now, the AHCA has enjoyed a relationship with our non-varsity hockey community, which is administrated now by Craig. He's here to present their ACHA Division I Coach of the Year Award former goalie. This must be goalie night, Mike. We've got a lot of goalie. Former goalie at Plattsburgh State, member of the Cardinals' 1987 state championship team, and he is completing his first year with the ACHA. My pleasure to bring up Craig Barnett.
Well, thank you, Bruce and Joe and the American Hockey Coaches Association. I'm truly humbled to be here tonight and be part of this Coaches Association and have the opportunity to honor one of our own as a member of the ACHA executive team. Since Bruce noted that this is my first year in this role, I'd like to take a quick minute and just recognize some of our ACHA executive team that's sitting at the table over here. Jim Martin is a board member. We have Al Murdoch, a former coach at Iowa State who's being inducted into our ACHA Hall of Fame on Friday night. Congratulations, Coach. We have Brian Moran, who's our Division I commissioner, and we have Stu Grimson here with us tonight from the ACHA. I'll let the coaches introduce themselves here in a little bit, but I appreciate our ACHA staff being here in support of our Coach of the Year. Our Coach of the Year is somebody that's been at this school for 6 years. He has taken his team for the fourth consecutive year to the ACHA National Tournament, which we just hosted down in Dallas, Texas last month. He made it all the way to the semifinal round this year, and they had a great team, and ACHA Division I hockey's really come a long way, and the competition was unbelievable. We have 60 Division I men's teams, a total of 531 teams in the ACHA. With men's and women's hockey. So this young man who's did an outstanding job, won 30 games this year as the head coach. And the most important thing, I think, is our Coach of the Year was selected by his peers. So his peers saw him not only as a great coach, but certainly a mentor and a colleague and a great representative of the ACHA. So without further ado, it's my honor to introduce to you our men's Division I Coach of the Year from the University of Michigan Dearborn, Chris Haltner.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Craig. I don't know how you go after Red Berenson. I've looked up to him for a long time being a Michigan man, but no, I just want to say thank you to the ACHA. Thank you to all the coaches who voted for me. It's an honor. I want to thank my staff. My coaching staff did a phenomenal job this year. Their hard work, dedication, second to none. My 27 student athletes who work extremely hard this year, I can't thank them enough for everything they do, and more importantly in the classroom. They did a great job academically. I want to thank my wife who, as you guys know, on weekends we're at games and has to take care of my newborn child. So I asked a lot of her, and she did a great job. So I want to thank everybody in that role. But thank you all tonight. I'm going to keep it short, so we can get on with our nights. I know that was a thing at the beginning. So thank all of you for everything. Appreciate it.
I'm glad Bruce mentioned the Reds' comments on the 72 Canada-Russia series. I remember we had a speaker that canceled, and somebody had a VHS tape of the 72 Canada-Russia series. We just asked him just off the top of his head if we could put the tape in and him just stop it when he wanted to stop it and talk about it. And it really was one of the more memorable presentations. I also want to mention that Red always attended every session. And, one of my pet peeves as an executive director is that because a lot of coaches are down here from the week before through their league meetings, now the convention starts, that people leave town. And sometimes people send their assistants. And Red had earned the right, if he chose, to send somebody in his stead, but he was always there, and he was always active. And I think it was a great example for the younger coaches. Hopefully many of them saw that and have remembered to participate. I was also impressed he'd been married 60 years, because I think with a little luck, my 2 marriages might add up to 60 years. So. But maybe not. One of the pleasures for me in this job is a chance to get to know people from around the country, as I have a parochial job and I have a national job. And I've had a particular fondness for the people from Minnesota. And I like to think I'm an adopted native when I go out to St. Paul, or I spend some time with people out there, and I've met a few of them that are here tonight. But one of them is former AHCA president, who's always been willing to step up, always asks if there's anything he can do. Just completed his 19th season as the head coach at Gustavus, and he's here to present this year's Edward Jeremiah Award to the NCAA Division III Coach of the Year. Before I call Brett up, one little note. You'll see these nice crystal awards behind us. And you may also note that when we present it to the winner, if he tries to leave with it, we pull it back away from him. So these are photo awards. We use these for the photo op. We had a bad experience with Shattered Waterford a few years ago. So we keep these down here, we use them for the photo, and we will ship to our next 2 recipients their award and their staff awards. A tradition that Bruce Crowder started many years ago, when only the head coach received an award, and Bruce, out of his own pocket, paid for smaller versions for his staff. And the AHCA board thought it was such a good idea that they adopted it as part of policy going forward. So having interrupted his introduction, I will now complete it. Please welcome Brett Peterson.
Thanks, Joe. For leading the University of Wisconsin-Stevens Point to the NCAA Division III Men's Ice Hockey Championship and an undefeated season, Tyler Kruger has been named winner of the Edward Jeremiah Award as the CCM AHCA Division III Men's Coach of the Year. The Pointers captured their 6th NCAA title with a thrilling 3-2 overtime win over Norwich. In his first season as head coach without the tag of interim coach, Kruger guided the Pointers to a phenomenal 29-win season with no losses and 2 ties. In just over 1,700 minutes of action this season, the Pointers trailed for just 34 minutes. Previously, Kruger was also named the Wisconsin Intercollegiate Athletic Conference Coach of the Year after leading the Pointers to its 3rd straight regular season title with an unblemished record in league play. His career record now after 2 seasons at Stevens Point is 50 wins, 6 losses, and 5 ties. Prior to taking over head coaching duties, he spent the previous 3 seasons on the staff of former head coach Chris Brooks, where he helped the Pointers to a 3-year consecutive run of national championship games in 2014, 2015, and culminating in 2016 with, at the time, their 5th national championship. The Edward Jeremiah Award is named in honor of the great Dartmouth head coach and was first presented back in 1970. It is now my pleasure to present this year's Eddie Jeremiah Award to Tyler Kruger from the University of Wisconsin, Stevens Point. Tyler?
Thank you. It's absolutely humbling to be up here in front of a lot of people that I look out to and look up to in their success in their careers, and kind of hope to get to one day. So it feels a little bit backwards for me to be up here at this point in my career, but nonetheless, they put me in front of the mic, so here I go. Okay, this award means a lot to our program. It doesn't mean a lot to me personally, because like I said, there's not. It's kind of a team award for us between our coaching staff, and there's a lot of people involved in our program to achieve the level of success that we've had. You know, none more so than Chris Brooks. He did a lot for me as a coach. I was a player under him for 3 years. Learned a ton from him. Didn't really want to or even think about getting in the coaching realm until I got to know him, got to learn from him, and see the impact that he had on me, not only as a player, but more so as a person, and the things that I learned from him that I still use today in my life. When he decided to take the job at Michigan Tech, he was the one who was lobbying for me with our athletic director to give the job to a 27-year-old with 3 years of experience, which I'm grateful for. He gave me the opportunity. It was the right place, right time, and he's a big reason why this program is at where it's at. I say it a lot. I was given a Ferrari. I just had to keep between the lines with this program. It's not like I had to turn this thing around. He was the one who turned it around from the dog days in the 90s, and I just kind of felt to take over from where he did and try to push it to another level. And he's done a lot of things for me, and I can't thank him enough. Another person I want to thank is first and foremost my wife, who can't be here tonight. She's back at home. We're expecting our first child in a couple months here in the summer, so my summers are going to be a whole lot different from now on. Mostly I want to thank our support staff. I got a lot of people who are special to me that came down here this weekend. My two assistants, Evan Dixon, Zach Badalamenti. They do more than they get credit for. I'm not the easiest person to work with at times. They know that. I know that, and they stick with me, and they have the courage to challenge me on a lot of things, which I want them to do. I admit that I don't know everything and make mistakes, and I want them to challenge me on their decisions, and so we can get the best for our team. Along with that, we have our radio play-by-play guy, best in the nation, Tom Weaver. He's phenomenal to have him around, and a great friend, and he's also the entertainment coordinator for our road trip, so it's a key person to have. We got our equipment manager, Todd Bialis, that he's actually a volunteer at Mercyhurst, so we lend him over to them for a little bit, but he comes back, and he's done a great job for us, and he's a great, better friend. After that, we had Ann Inman, our women's coach, who we talk a lot during the season about behind closed doors, about the players that we all love and hate. And then Tommy Upton. He was a coach of mine when I was a player. He was an assistant coach there, and learned a lot from him, and even better friends now. But just now as coaching colleagues, we touch base quite a bit to kind of just go over things and run things by him. And he's a big mentor of mine, and I'm glad that he can be here tonight as well. People that know me know I hate talking about myself, so I would rather talk about our team this year just a little bit briefly. To give a little backstory of how our team had the success I think we've had this year, I think it came around with winning that 2016 one. I feel grateful to be able to win 2 championships at such a young age, and to realize what it really means and what it's all about. So I wasn't chasing something that, in the end, I don't think means a whole lot for 20 years until I won my first one. When you hit the pinnacle of success, you expect things to change. You expect them to get easier. They just get more complicated. They get harder. The more you achieve, the faster the treadmill goes, and the more the expectations go higher. And when you put yourself into that world that we live in today, it's an all or nothing. Your job can be not that fun at times. So I think there's a better way to do it. After the 16 one, we kind of thought about things differently, and that does not mean that I don't want to win. I love winning. I hate losing. Just asked our 2 euchre players that were playing in our house this week. If I lose, I'm not a very happy camper. And I just think there's a better way to do it. So my message, or our message as staff to the team this year, was to enjoy the journey. Rather than focus on the end goal of winning that ultimate prize, I want to enjoy the steps along the way. It's just like going on a vacation. You look forward to your vacation for how long, you're planning for it, talking about it. You get there, and before you know it, it's over. You're back home, and you're the same person you were, and then you get a little depressed. It's not. I think life needs to be lived as you go along. So I want our guys to enjoy the journey of each day, each practice, each game along this year, and that was the message that we sent right from day one. And I think that who you become and what you learn along the way while you're chasing whatever you're chasing, it's a championship, you're chasing a job or promotion, who you become along the way and what you learn is probably the most important thing. So with that said, going into this year, we just had a few standards that we wanted to change. We wanted to achieve higher standards of performance in all different ways within our team. And as a leader, it's not what you preach about your standards, it's what you tolerate. And we kind of held our guys accountable to a lot of different ways. I wanted our guys to be hungry and strive to improve every single day. And for us, that's the kind of, I think, how the undefeated thing came about. It wasn't something we ever talked about ourselves. We're in a different situation than pretty much everybody else in the room. We don't have an automatic bid within our conference, so we can't get hot down the stretch and bank on winning a tournament. Game 1, game 2 are just as important as game 24 and 25 for us, so that just gives us a little bit we focus on, versus focusing on the outcome, we focus on the growth. Just because we win a game 6-1 doesn't mean that we played well. We constantly striving to improve in all facets of our game and all facets of our character. I want our players to take extreme ownership, and that starts with me. I think there's still the Navy SEAL quote that there's no such thing as bad teams, just bad leaders. And, when our team has a poor performance or our power play sucks one night or our players aren't running the system that we just talked about, worked on for 4 days in practice, it's easy to blame the players. It's easy to blame other people and point the fingers, but I think ultimately it's got to come back to the leaders, and you have to look in the mirror and learn and see how you can explain that message a different way. If they're not receiving it, then it's your fault for not communicating it right. So that's just something that when it starts from the top, it starts to trickle down, and that's something we noticed during the year with our captains and other leaders on the team taking ownership of a lot of different areas. I don't want players that complain. If you're complaining, you're whining, and nobody likes whiners. I want people that find solutions and can just get by in any situation. Lastly, as we get down the stretch here, I think we were down the stretch in some big games, undefeated things people started to talk about. The pressure mounted on our team a little bit as we were going to be hosting the Final Four. They went back to a host site this year. We had a chance at hosting it. There's just a lot of outside talk, outside noise that I think since our guys started to feel a little bit of pressure. So we talked about how to deal with that. We prepare to the utmost extent. We prepare for every single scenario, contingency plans within a game, so when stuff goes haywire, our guys don't panic. When you're in pressure situations, you have to act on logic, not on your emotion, and the team that stays steady in those big, tight games is the team that's going to win. We kind of give our guys a win mentality of what's important now. We get scored on. What's important now? It's a bad call. Are we going to yell at the ref? He doesn't change it. No, it's what's important now. Let's go get our kill. That mentality kind of carries over with everything else in life and kind of helped their team flourish on the stretch. I want our team to play with the play-to-win mentality. I don't want guys out there to be afraid to make a mistake. I want them to play free, play on their toes. So, that's the kind of style of tempo that we played. It's on your toes, puck possession, in your face, suffocating type of hockey game. I want to suffocate the other teams. I want to feel full pressure at all times and kind of come out in waves, and that allows our guys to play more aggressively. I don't want them to play on their heels, back, waiting. I want them to be not afraid to make a mistake. So that's kind of how we dealt with pressure along the year. When ultimately at the end, I think it gave me the answer of why do we coach? Why do we want to win a championship? It's not about the wins and losses, or the records, or the trophies. It's about who we become and what we learned along the way while we're chasing that ultimate prize. And that's kind of the way we do things and the way that we want to do things moving forward. It's been an honor just to be in front of you guys and hope to speak with you tonight. I hope you have a good rest of your night, and best of luck to your teams as we move forward. Thanks.
We've talked about family and how we give back to hockey. I think would be hard to find a family that has been more involved through the years with college hockey than the Riley family. And Joe and I have been really fortunate the last few years in working with the board of having somebody who was always ready there to help no matter what we were doing, like Brian Riley. He's been involved with college hockey for 40 years as a player, assistant coach, and for the past 15 seasons as the head coach at the United States Military Academy. He serves the AHCA right now as our past president and is here to present our final award of the night, the Spencer Penrose Award, to the NCAA Division I Coach of the Year. Please welcome Brian Riley.
Coach Norton, I don't think I wrote my notes big enough here. I could be in trouble. I just want to say to Joe and Bruce, a couple years ago, they came to me and said, hey, would you like to be the president? You really don't have to do much. I'm like, okay. And then they said, well, when you're the past president, you don't have to do anything. Well, here I am. So any coaches, if you see Joe or Bruce coming at you this weekend, you might want to go the other way. But No, really, this is unbelievable, humbling experience for me to be able to work on this board, to work with all the coaches that I've worked with, and obviously with Joe and Bruce. So I'm honored to be able to be up here tonight to present tonight's last award, and want to congratulate all the award winners. For coaching the University of Massachusetts to its first NCAA Frozen Four appearance and first NCAA championship game, Greg Carvel is this year's winner of the Spencer Penrose Award. The honor is not only the first for Coach Carvel, but it's the first such honor for UMass since it came into Division I hockey in 1993. UMass enjoyed a historic season, setting new school records in just about every category. UMass compiled a record of 31-10-0, winning the school's first Hockey East regular season title and winning 3 games in the NCAA tournament, a pair of 4-0 shutouts in the Northeast Regional against Harvard and Notre Dame, and obviously a thrilling 4-3 overtime win against Denver in the semifinals in Buffalo. A former NHL assistant and former ECAC Hockey Coach of the Year while at St. Lawrence, Coach Carvel has a record of 125, 122, and 19 in 7 years as head coach. But the last 3 years at UMass, his win totals have gone from 5 to 17 to 31 in 3 seasons. Assisting Coach Carvel this season were Ben Barr, Jared DeMichael, and TJ Seiner. It is my honor and pleasure to present the 2019 Spencer Penrose Award to UMass head coach Greg Carvel.
Thank you, everybody, and congratulations to all tonight's award winners. All right. I'd first like to say congratulations to Scott Sandelin on Duluth's tremendous season and winning another national championship. I'd also say congratulations to Eric Lang, my partner in crime in Western Mass, on his team's tremendous season. Eric was the runner-up for this award, and all 3 of the coaches here very equally should have been winners this year. So congratulations on your season. Before I get to talking about the Penrose, I really want to acknowledge my 2 assistant coaches who you've heard a little bit about here, Ben Barr and Jared DeMichael. We all started together 3 years ago, and all I really did was come to the job with a vision and a plan, what I thought was capable. And those 2 guys did all the heavy lifting. They're 2 tremendous assistant coaches. They have great experience. They're great people. They're good friends. It's really fun to come to work every day. And the reason that this program has skyrocketed is because of these 2 guys, and I'm very appreciative of what they do for me. And along that line, Ryan Bamford, also my AD, to me is he's a superstar. He's the reason I came to UMass. He had a vision, and what he believed UMass hockey could be, and that's why I went there. And I want to thank you, Ryan, for believing in me and believing in our program. And as we all know as coaches, if you don't get your AD's leadership and investment, it's hard to find success. All right, so everyone who knows me knows that I don't really have a lot to say. In preparation for this speech, I called Bruce, and I said, Bruce, what's the appropriate time for this? And he said, Greg, brevity is always the best, and in your case, shouldn't be much of a problem. So I haven't said much through 48 years of my life, but I think I've saved them up for tonight, and I apologize for that. I find it very important that on a night like this, that I take the time to thank the group of coaches who've molded me into the coach I am today and instilled certain qualities that I think have been very important to me. So UMass, we had a great year, many firsts for us. And the day after we secured our spot in the Frozen Four, I was scrolling through Twitter, came across an article, looked like it would be a fun article to read about UMass. I opened it up, and the first line said, Greg Carvel is not gregarious. I thought to myself, well, that's not a very nice thing to say. I said, it's true, but it's still not a nice thing to say. Now, I followed at St. Lawrence the legendary head coach Joe Marsh, hockey coach, comedian, storyteller, you name it. And so I know all too well what it's like to stand in front of a room and wish you were listening to Joe Marsh instead of not so gregarious Carvels. But we're going to make the best of it tonight. Very humbled to win this award. This is something that I never dreamed about possibly winning. Many years I've looked at the list of winners, all the name of coaches that I really respect, Joe Marsh, Tim Taylor, Rick Bennett, just to name a few. And to think that I'm in that list now is very humbling for me. When I started thinking about what I would talk about tonight, I thought about the coaches that I've had through my career, and I became unabashedly aware that the quality of the coaches I've had to learn from over my time is really impressive. And again, I want to speak about each tonight very quickly. Terry Martin, Paul Flanagan, Jeff Kozak, Joe Marsh, Jack Arena, Mike Babcock, and Brian Murray. This is an all-star lineup of coaches by anyone's standard. And quite frankly, if I didn't eventually win this award, I would have looked like a buffoon, because these are high-quality coaches, and I've been very fortunate to work with them. So I grew up in Canton, New York, small town, only about 5,000 people. But Nort's talked about UNH being a cradle of coaches, and I think Canton, New York might be a cradle of coaches too. So we had only 5,000 people in this town, but when I was 13 years old, the following people were living in Canton and were either coaching or playing hockey, and a few of these people here tonight. First was Mike McShane. Mike's 5-time national winner, the coach of the year in Division III. Joe Marsh, 2-time Penrose winner. Paul Flanagan has been the college hockey women's national coach of the year. Chris Wells, national coach of the year, women's as well. Mark Taylor, who's here tonight, he's been a 6-time finalist for Division III coach of the year. And Terry Martin, who won 12 national championships at the junior level college. So all those people in a little 5,000 people town, it was really unfortunate for me to be surrounded by those people. First of those is Terry Martin. He was a long-time head coach at Canton ATC. He was a living legend, and he was the most positive coach I've ever been around. And all he ever did was win national championships year after year. And now there's a statue built for him in front of the arena at Canton College. He's statue worthy. Myself and like most of the rest of us here, we've spent our careers trying not to be hung in effigy, and Coach Martin has statues built for him. So the thing I learned from Coach Martin was the importance and the effectiveness of positive coaching. I played my high school hockey for Paul Flanagan. PJ is a North Country kid like myself. He's now the head women's coach at Syracuse University. When I played for PJ, we practiced at 5:30 every morning. And before school, we practiced. This was something I did not like. But it built character, and that's what PJ taught to me and my teammates. He taught us the importance of grit and character and coaching with integrity. And all characteristics that you almost can't help but build growing up in the rugged North Country. I moved on to play prep hockey at AHCA for the classiest and most intellectual coach I ever played for, and that was Jeff Kozak. Koz came from the Iron Range. He was hard, honest, and he saw the game at a level that the rest of us really couldn't comprehend at that time. He's statue worthy. Myself and like most of the rest of us here, we've spent our careers trying not to be hung in effigy, and Coach Martin has statues built for him. So the thing I learned from Coach Martin was the importance and the effectiveness of positive coaching. I played my high school hockey for Paul Flanagan. PJ is a North Country kid like myself. He's now the head women's coach at Syracuse University. When I played for PJ, we practiced at 5:30 every morning. And before school, we practiced. This was something I did not like. But it built character, and that's what PJ taught to me and my teammates. He taught us the importance of grit and character and coaching with integrity. And all characteristics that you almost can't help but build growing up in the rugged North Country. I moved on to play prep hockey at AHCA for the classiest and most intellectual coach I ever played for, and that was Jeff Kozak. Koz came from the Iron Range. He was hard, honest, and he saw the game at a level that the rest of us really couldn't comprehend at that time. He was the most principled coach and the most direct coach I ever played for. And with Koz, there was no malarkey. Koz never swore. Never heard him swear in 2 years, and I'll be lucky if I get through the speech without swearing. He was all class, all world in my eyes, and he commanded my respect, and that's what I took away from my time with Koz. As a coach, you need to command respect. I did fairly well in school academically, so I created the opportunity to play for the great Tim Taylor at Yale University. I viewed Coach Taylor in the same way as I did Coach Kozak. However, I proved in one single decision that maybe I wasn't quite Ivy League material when I chose instead to play for Joe Marsh at St. Lawrence over the esteemed Tim Taylor. Coach Taylor was the consummate gentleman. Joe was the human incarnation of the Tasmanian devil, as many of you know. Joe was infamous for intermission tirades, passionate displays of emotion, but he was also the greatest players coach in the history of college hockey. Choosing to play for Joe was actually an easy decision and one of my best. Joe was unpredictable in some ways, predictable in others. During my 4 years playing with Joe, he broke his hand and both of his feet. There wasn't a trash can, a towel dispenser, or office door that went unscathed in Appleton. And in fact, Joe was the only coach in the history of college hockey who was injured more than his players. His intermission tirades were also legendary, and his creativity, passion, and motivation. And there's one that sticks out, and I've told this story a couple of times, and I don't remember who we were playing or what the score was, but I remember the message pretty clear, obviously, many years later. So, in my best Joe Marsh Boston accent, he came flying into the locker room. He says, "The way you guys are playing, it's gonna give me a heart attack. And if it does, I'm gonna come back and haunt each and every one of you." And we started laughing and probably went out and won the game, but that was Joe. What was predictable about Joe was his love of his players and our love for him. He was the ultimate players coach. Joe would do absolutely anything for any of his players. We all loved him. Jack Parker once made a statement that every player who ever played for Joe all felt like they played on the same team because of Joe, and it's absolutely true. Joe led and we all followed. As I said, he would do absolutely anything for his players, and no greater example for me than 20 years after I finished playing for Joe, when he magnanimously stepped aside and allowed me to take over the mantle and follow him as the head coach of St. Lawrence. It was a great honor for me. Saints hockey is something that Joe built over 26 years, and I did my very best to continue that legacy. We played our hearts out for Joe. Again, we knew he'd do anything for us, and so what Joe taught me was how to be a passionate coach and how to give it yourself for your players' sake. During my time in the NHL, I was fortunate to work for 2 years with Mike Babcock in Anaheim. During my first practice on the ice with Mike, I think I was about 31 years old, and I was quite in awe of being on the ice with NHL players. Probably wasn't quite at the top of my coaching game. And 2 drills into practice, he comes screaming across the ice, screams at me, "You got one goddamn job out here, move the pucks!" And I said, so I quickly learned the importance of preparation and intensity from Mike Babcock. You can ask my players, that message stuck. I was also extremely fortunate to work for 10 years under Hall of Fame coach and GM Brian Murray. I had the privilege of experiencing 2 runs to the Stanley Cup Finals with Brian. Brian treated me like a son, but I like to say he treated me like gold. He really launched my coaching career as he gave me some great opportunities to coach in the NHL. Brian taught me that teams are always a reflection of their coach, and boy was he spot on with that. He also proved to me how important genuine relationships and communication is with your players. Brian was a rare players coach in the NHL because of these traits. I also want to thank my crosstown coach in Amherst and longtime friend Jack Arena. He's a 2-time winner of the Edward Jeremiah Award. He just completed his 36th year at Amherst. There's not many things anymore that make me feel young, and that's one of them, 36 years. That's incredible. I served as Jack's graduate assistant for 1 year. He still blames me for not winning the championship that year, and he's probably right. But Jack was very pivotal in my decision to come to UMass, and he's been a great support ever since. I want to thank him. I also want to thank the great assistants and staff that I've had in the 7 years I've been in college hockey. It's not a long list, but it is a quality one. As I mentioned, Ben Barr, Jared DeMichael, Chris Mayock, James Marcoux, Mike Harlbutt, Mark Randall, and my good friend, Mike the Birdman Alberty. As head coaches, we all know how important having a great staff is, and again, very fortunate. Finally, my greatest gratitude goes to my family. I have a great hockey wife. I love that she's not consumed with our wins or losses. She's much more concerned whether I'm making principled decisions and treating my players like my sons. She understands that after a long week focusing on a team, sometimes on Sundays we have to get in the car and go recruit. All that she asks is that I maintain the proper balance between hockey and family. She understands me and supports me as a hockey coach. That's all I can ask for. Diana, thank you very much. I want to thank my dad also, who was tough as nails on me as a Pee Wee coach, but has been my biggest fan ever since. And to my mom, Mary Ellen, who thinks I deserve the Penrose every year. For once, I got it right. I want to thank also all the coaches who voted for me. As I said, there's so many quality coaches at this level, and again, completely humble. Never ever imagined I'd be on the same level as Joe Marsh. So thank you very much.
We are in the final minute of play. I do want to acknowledge some people. Bruce is here early, setting all this stuff up. The hotel staff does a great job for us. We've got our friend in the corner who have one more assignment. When you checked in, Allie and Mo and Tamara, Kathy Winters, who does a lot from the Hockey East office. Brian Smith from my office as well, who helps me with anything that's remotely technical. For the award winners, there are boxes behind the stage, so I'm not going to get back up here, but if you've got something that has to travel, they've got something for you here to carry them with, and a reminder you can back up for photos. And the last thing we do every year, the NCAA sends us a copy of the video that they create for the Frozen Four. And I know it's a Division I and III crowd and a varsity, non-varsity crowd, but this is an example of our game at its finest, the teams that advance to that final weekend of the season. So I want to thank everybody for being here. We're gonna exit after watching this year's NCAA highlight video. Thank you.
It's only this moment, don't care what comes after. Your fever dream, can't you see getting closer? Just surrender, cause you feel the feeling taking over. It's fire, it's freedom, it's fire open. It's the bleacher and the puppet and your mind and motion. There's something breaking at the brink of everyone. It's all that you know. So tell me where you wanna go. Where it's covering all the color and lights. Where the runaways are running the night. Possible comes true. Send me away, you know. It's the greatest show. Johnson.